Am I the a-hole for threatening to kick out my stepdaughter for stealing from my daughter? 4 years ago, I went through a really tough time because my wife died from breast cancer. It was a huge loss for me. I was 42 at the time, and for our two daughters, who were 19 and 17 years old. Life without her has been hard, but we've been doing our best to move forward. Then, about a year and a half ago, I met someone named Vicky. She's 47 years old. We hit it off pretty quickly and found out that we really enjoyed each other's company. Vicky also has a daughter named Heather, who is 24. After Vicky and I fell in love, she and Heather moved in with me and my daughters. Now, even though Vicky and I are very close and in love, we decided that we're not going to get married. That means Heather isn't officially my stepdaughter, but she lives with us, so she's part of the household. From the start, I noticed Heather was quite cold and unfriendly towards me. I tried really hard to get along with her because I wanted us all to feel like a family. I made efforts to chat with her, understand her interests, and generally be nice, hoping we could at least be friendly with each other. But no matter what I did, she didn't warm up to me. She was not only rude to me, but also to her mom. Heather also had some problems with my daughters. There were a few times when they got into verbal arguments. I had to step in and calm things down quickly because I didn't want those fights to hurt our chance at having a peaceful home. When Heather started causing issues and getting into arguments with my daughters, I stepped in. I made it clear to Heather that if she had any issues, she should come to me directly instead of targeting my daughters. This approach seemed to help, and things calmed down for a while. Last week, we celebrated a special occasion. My eldest daughter, Cassie, turned 19. I wanted to give her something special, so I gave her a gift card worth $500 for a spa package. It was a treat for two, and I told her she could choose anyone she wanted to go with her. Cassie was thrilled and decided to take her younger sister along. They were both excited about the spa day and planned to make their reservation soon. However, a couple of days ago when Cassie was ready to book the spa day, she couldn't find the gift card anywhere. We all searched the house for hours, turning things upside down, but the gift card was nowhere to be found. Later that day, when Heather got home, we asked her if she had seen it. Heather said she hadn't. We continued searching, and about an hour later, Vicky found the gift card. It was in Heather's room, despite Heather insisting that she didn't know where it was. This discovery was upsetting because it seemed like Heather had taken it, although she denied having anything to do with it. This situation has made things tense at home again, just when I thought we were starting to get along better. After the discovery of the gift card in Heather's room, the situation escalated when Heather finally admitted that she had taken it from Tessa's room and used it to go to the spa with her girlfriend 2 days prior. Understandably, this made me very angry. I felt betrayed and upset, especially since it was meant to be a special gift for Cassie. In my anger, I told Heather that she needed to pay Cassie $500, the value of the gift card, or I would have no choice but to ask her to leave our home. Heather's response was that she couldn't pay the money back because she doesn't have a job and has also dropped out of college. Given that she has been living at my house without paying for rent or anything else, this was particularly frustrating to hear. In the heat of the moment, I told her that if she couldn't figure out how to make it right, she might have to consider moving in with her father, whom she isn't close with. This comment made things worse. Heather responded very angrily, calling me every name under the sun, and then locked herself in her room, refusing to come out. When I discussed the situation with Vicky, she felt that my reaction was too harsh, considering Heather really doesn't have another feasible place to go, and her father isn't willing to support her. This situation has left us in a very tense and uncomfortable place at home. We're stuck trying to figure out how to navigate these hurt feelings and financial issues, while also maintaining some semblance of peace within the household. It's a tough situation all around, and finding the right solution is proving to be quite challenging. So am I the a-hole? Now for some comments before the update. Not the a-hole. She just stole $500. That's insane. Tell her to get a job, to pay it back, or she can deal with it with the police. And good grief. Why is the 24-year-old living in the house without paying rent? Is she contributing in other ways? Cleaning, cooking, no job, no further education. What does she do all day other than pick on two girls younger than her and steal from them? You and your partner, except for that. Edit wonder who the friend was she took to the spot. Wonder if it was Vicky. This whole thing is bonkers to me. For a woman to move in with him and bring a 24-year-old adult child to live there too is just nuts. Secondly, the minute this fully grown adult started talking back to me, she would be out, out, out. And third, if Vicky is sticking up for her daughter's behavior, she'd be out too. Opie needs to ask them both to move out and take back his home. That makes Opie the a-hole. Why on earth would you allow a hostile, unpleasant person to move into the home you share with your teenage daughters because their mother is sleeping with you? He prioritized his new relationship over his daughter's well-being. I mean, this is the hill today on your priorities need to be your kids, and you are allowing a stressful and hostile living situation. Vicky needs to know either Heather goes or you can no longer live together, not the a-hole. This reminds me of that guy whose stepdaughter stole a lot of money from his son. But then, the wife takes the daughter's side instead of punishing her in any way. I think he did end up pressing charges after a while. And he and his son moved across the state after selling their house. So he ended up doing the last half of his senior year of high school at a new school. It was a really frustrating story, but ultimately it turned out good. So she told you she didn't like your daughters? Your daughter went into a lot of effort to cook for the family that she refused to touch. And she called your daughter a witch and you let her stay. You're the a-hole for letting her treat your daughters like crap and not kicking her out for it the first time. Is your relationship with her and her mom more important than your relationship with your daughters? Of course, my daughters are way more important. I guess I was just desensitized to it with regard to this particular situation because neither Vicky nor Heather can cook. I always cook after work, and Heather never touched the food I make either. Not the a-hole. So is Vicky going to pay the $500? She's the mom who is defending her thief daughter. You need to take a very hard look at this whole relationship. Vicky has been a stay-at-home mom since her daughter was born. Vicky doesn't have a job. Her ex was ordered to pay alimony and child support, but he has never paid. And yes, I am looking at Vicky in a new light now. This is concerning. Update. Quite some people have been asking for an update considering it's been a rough week, and only now are things coming down. I thought I'd write an update. After the incident with the gift card, things in our house were really tense, so I decided it was time to clear the air and have an honest talk with my daughters. We all sat down and discussed everything, from Heather's behavior and its impact on us, to my relationship with Vicky and how things had been handled until now. During our conversation, it became clear that my daughters have had issues with Heather for a long time. They feel that she gets away with too much because Vicky often doesn't hold her accountable. This leniency has been a source of frustration for them. As we talked, I also took time to read through various comments and pieces of advice people have shared with me about my situation. This made me start to question my relationship with Vicky. I always thought that despite our problems, we truly loved each other. However, my daughters see it differently. They believe that Vicky may not really be in love with me, and they suggested that what Vicky and I share might be more about companionship than deep love. Particularly, Cassie pointed out that it seemed like I was just lonely and looking for someone to be with rather than being in love with Vicky for who she truly is. This has been a lot to take in. It's made me think about what I really want out of my relationships and how I've been handling the dynamics in our blended family. Things have begun to calm down now as we are all taking time to reflect on our discussions and consider how we want to move forward. It's not easy, but I'm hopeful that we can find a way to make our home life better and more peaceful for everyone involved. My daughter totally figured something out that even I hadn't noticed. She realized that I wasn't really in love like I thought I was. It was more about not being alone. To keep things nice for my daughters, I paid for them to go to the spa, because their spa day was ruined when Heather took the gift card that was meant for them. They finally went and had an amazing time, which was a big relief. Things with Heather got really serious, too. After everything that happened, I decided that it was best if Heather moved out. When I told Vicky, my girlfriend, she was upset and said she would leave too if Heather had to go. But when I said that was okay, she could leave if she wanted, Vicky changed her mind and decided to stay. Heather was really upset about having to leave, but she packed up her things and moved out pretty quickly. She's now staying with a friend for a while. I told Vicky that if Heather didn't pay back the $500 she took, I would have to report it to the police. Vicky was really shocked by this and even called her parents for help, even though she usually doesn't get along with them. Surprisingly, they helped out and gave her the money to pay me back. After all this happened, I realized I needed to have a tough talk with Vicky. I was thinking it might be time for us to go our separate ways. It's been a rough time, and there's a lot to think about. So, before I could even start the conversation with Vicky about possibly breaking up, she brought it up first. She was really upset with me for saying I might call the police on Heather for not returning the $500 she took. Vicky told me she couldn't be with someone who would do that, and honestly, I felt a sense of relief when she said it. Maybe she noticed that. Then Vicky asked if I was going to try to fix things, or persuade her to stay. When I said no, things got pretty heated. She yelled a lot, and it was clear things were over between us. Vicky decided to move out and stay with a couple who are her close friends. I ended up helping her move her stuff to her friend's house, but it was awkward. I was pretty much ignored the whole time, and I have no clue what Vicky might have told her friends about the situation. Now it's the first day since everyone has moved out, and the house is finally quiet. I can already see that my daughters are much happier, and honestly, that's the most important thing to me. They're my top priority, and seeing them happy makes all the drama worth it. Thanks to everyone who shared their thoughts and advice, it really helped me through a tough time. Now for the comments. So if Vicky hasn't worked for 24 years, and the ex hasn't paid alimony or child support, and Vicky has a poor relationship with her parents, how did she pay rent, car, food, etc. before she met Opie? I think the heather apple didn't fall far from the Vicky tree, and there's a lot of lying going on. Good thing they weren't married. I doubt the ex is the deadbeat, Vicky claimed. I remember there was a thread where a dude was told the ex of his girlfriend slash fiance slash wife didn't pay up what he ordered. But surprise? He actually did, and had never missed a payment. She lied to get more money out of that poster. My boyfriend's dad's ex-girlfriend did the same thing. Lied to his dad for months that her kid's dad wasn't paying child support. He missed 1 month due to work issues and probably made it back the next month. But she lied and said he just stopped paying altogether. My boyfriend's dad paid for everything for kids that weren't even his 4 months. It killed him financially by the time they finally broke up. All these credit cards were maxed out and he was in the negative in his bank account because she paid for nothing. Now she's living in the house they bought together because she threatened to break up with him if he didn't put her name on the deed. Surprise, surprise! It's only his name on the mortgage. She gaslit and manipulated the heck out of him. It was awful. The financial, mental, and emotional abuse he put him through was astounding. And she just got away with it. Take Opie's comments, and it turns out they went directly from living with Vicky's last boyfriend to Opie. So Opie was dating her while she was living with and freeloading off of her ex, and he didn't see a red flag. Elmo Opie, if you're reading this, hopefully you've learned that you don't have the best judgment and should wait to get approval from your 2 daughters before letting a new girlfriend move in with you. They know what's best for you. Also has been a stay-at-home mom for 24 years and still have not learned to cook. What does she do with her time? Look for men to pay her in her daughter's way. Full-time job, I'll bet. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my girlfriend over my cousin's wedding? So I'm a 24-year-old guy, and I've been dating my girlfriend, who's also 24, for over 2 years now. We've had our share of arguments, but overall, things have been pretty good between us. This year was supposed to be a big deal for us. She was finishing up college, and I graduated the year before. We had plans to start living together once she got a job and could help pay half the rent. Right now, I'm living with some roommates. This year was also important for my cousin. Let's call him Doug, who's also 24. Doug and I are super close, almost like brothers. We were born just a month apart and grew up really near each other, only about 2 miles away. Every summer we'd hang out nonstop, switching between staying at his place and mine. Sure, we got into a bit of mischief here and there, but we always looked out for each other. We were pretty much joined at the hip from when we were babies until around middle school. As we grew up, Doug and I started to drift apart a little. We ended up hanging out with different friends and getting into different things. It wasn't like we planned it, it just happened. But we still really cared about each other and would do anything for one another. This year was especially big for Doug because he got married. My girlfriend was super excited about the wedding because it was her first chance to meet a lot of my extended family. I was really looking forward to introducing her to everyone too. Doug and his fiancée sent out their save the date cards around September, I think, but I'm not great at remembering specific dates. Fast forward to spring, and my girlfriend starts telling me about her graduation plans that she and her family were putting together. They planned to kick things off with a big meal at a nice restaurant with all her relatives, and then they'd all head to her graduation ceremony. After that, everyone would go their separate ways. Things were looking good, until I realized that my girlfriend's graduation was on the exact same day as Doug's wedding. I freaked out a bit, because I really didn't want to miss either event. What was I going to do now? The place where Doug was getting married was about an hour away from where my girlfriend's college was. After looking over the schedules for both events, I figured out a plan. I could attend the wedding ceremony and then immediately head to the graduation. By doing this, I would unfortunately miss both the wedding party and the initial celebration for my girlfriend's graduation. It was a total bummer to miss out on the parties, but I wanted to be there for the big moments. I talked to my girlfriend about the clash and explained how bad I felt about the whole mix-up. I told her I'd still be able to make it to both main events. I also asked if there was any way her family could push back their celebration to after the graduation ceremony. This way, I could at least meet her family and join in that part of the celebration. I even asked if she could come with me to the wedding if we adjusted her family's celebration plans. However, I wasn't sure about the details like how early she needed to be at campus to get ready and all that stuff. Unfortunately, this suggestion really upset her. She felt let down because it seemed like I wasn't choosing her first on this important day. She explained that it was impossible to move her family's gathering since one of her relatives couldn't stay out late and they had already made a reservation at the restaurant. She stressed how crucial this party was to her and expressed her disappointment that I'd miss it. We went back and forth for about 15 minutes. I was trying to find a way to make everything work, and she was upset, suggesting that I should consider skipping my cousin's wedding entirely to show that she was my top priority. It was a tough conversation because we both felt like big moments in our lives were clashing, and it was hard to find a solution that made everyone happy. That day, everything just came to a head, and my frustration and anger boiled over like never before. I had always prided myself on keeping my cool, especially with her, but the stress and pressure of trying to juggle these two incredibly important events in my life proved too much. As she continued to express her disappointment and suggest that skipping my cousin's wedding should have been a viable option to show my commitment to her, I felt cornered and misunderstood. In the midst of our heated discussion, her words started to sting more deeply, and I felt as if she was questioning my commitment and priorities simply because I was trying to honor both my cousin, who was like a brother to me, and her on their special days. It felt unfair that I was being pushed to choose, and her insistence only amplified the tension. Finally, unable to contain my frustration any longer, I raised my voice, a first in our relationship. I expressed how unfair it felt that she was asking me to prioritize her event over my family's, especially since I was scrambling to find a solution that wouldn't require me to miss either. I pointed out how my family, in a similar situation, would never pressure me to make such a difficult choice. They would likely urge me to attend her graduation instead, showing understanding and flexibility. The argument escalated quickly, with emotions running high on both sides. I told her how disappointed I was that she couldn't see the effort I was making to balance these important commitments. The feeling of being torn between two loved ones was already painful enough without the added stress of her not recognizing the dilemma I was in. Overwhelmed by the situation, I decided that it was too much to handle. I couldn't be with someone who demanded that I choose between her and my family under such circumstances. In a moment of anger, I grabbed the few personal items I had at her apartment, stormed out, and made the decision to block her number, cutting off all communication then and there. This drastic step marked the end of our relationship, a relationship that until then I had thought was strong enough to withstand life's inevitable challenges. In the days that followed, filled with regret and reflection, I gathered all her belongings from my place. Packing them up felt like I was packing away the memories and moments we shared. I mailed everything back to her, avoiding the drive to her place, which now felt like a journey too painful to undertake. Our homes, once places of shared dreams and laughter, were now just waypoints on a map, marked by the distance that had grown between us. The decision to part ways in such a sudden and harsh manner left me with a mix of relief and profound sadness, pondering how a conflict over competing significant life events escalated into a full-blown rupture of our bond. After that intense argument and the abrupt end to our relationship, I needed to step back from everything and everyone. It wasn't just about distancing myself from my now ex-girlfriend. I had been thinking about taking a break from social media for a while. This whole mess seemed like the right moment to finally do it, so I deleted all my social media accounts. It felt like shedding a layer of stress and constant connection that I really didn't need right then. The wedding day arrived, and despite the emotional turmoil leading up to it, I managed to enjoy my cousin Doug's wedding. It was a beautiful ceremony, filled with joy and family, a stark contrast to the personal chaos I'd just experienced. During the reception, my aunt, Doug's mom, pulled me aside. She had learned about the scheduling conflict with my girlfriend's graduation and what had transpired as a result. To my complete surprise, she told me that she had actually tried to reschedule the wedding to accommodate me. The attempt to move the wedding date was a gesture of enormous kindness and empathy, but unfortunately, the venue's policies were too strict to allow any changes. She even apologized for not being able to help more, which was something I never expected. I reassured her that moving the wedding date for one person, especially given the 200 guests involved, would have been unreasonable. I was touched by the effort and thought it confirmed that my family really did prioritize our well-being and relationships over rigid plans. This conversation with my aunt only reinforced my feeling that I had made the right decision. The willingness of my family to go to such lengths for me underscored the kind of support and understanding that I valued. It was a stark contrast to the inflexibility I'd encountered with my girlfriend's situation. In that moment, surrounded by family who clearly had my back, I felt a sense of peace about the choices I had made, despite the heartache and disruption they had caused. It was a tough lesson in balancing love, loyalty, and personal well-being, but ultimately, It reaffirmed where and with whom my true support lay. So, why am I sharing all this? It turns out that since our breakup, my ex-girlfriend has been telling our circle of friends her side of the story, and it's led most of them to turn against me. To be honest, many of these friends were closer to her first, so it's not entirely surprising. However, the messages I've been receiving from them have been pretty harsh. They're upset that I missed her graduation and have told me that I acted terribly for not being there. What's more, they say she was planning to apologize to me at her graduation. According to them, all she wanted was for me to say that I'd choose her party over my cousin's wedding, and then she would have insisted that I shouldn't miss the wedding after all. Now, because I didn't give her that chance, I'm being labeled not just as a jerk, but as a bully and a verbal abuser. A couple of them even said that she was scared during our argument, that I had intimidated her. This portrayal really doesn't sit right with me. Anyone who knows me understands that I'm usually a very laid-back person. It takes a lot to get me visibly upset. The version of events being spread isn't just exaggerated, it feels like a complete misrepresentation of who I am and what actually happened. Recently, one of them messaged me to rub it in my face that they were out at a bar, dancing with guys who were supposedly much more attractive than me, telling me I'd missed my chance. I just want all this drama to stop. I wish there was a way to clear up these misunderstandings without causing more conflict or hurt feelings. It's tough feeling like the villain in a story when all you tried to do was make everyone happy. Edit. About the rage, I just wanted to clarify something. I probably should have made this clear, but when I said I raged, I reached for my standards. Did I yell? Yes. Was I screaming? No. She's raising her voice to me like this almost every time we had a fight. I'm generally the calm one in an argument. I never called her names other than selfish. I never got even remotely physical, nor physically intimidating. In fact, I was trying to keep as much distance from her as I could. I mostly just wanted to get out of there. Should I have gone so nuclear? Probably not. But she did still have ways to reach me. She could have emailed me. She could have called me at work. She could have come to my apartment. She could have texted me through a mutual friend. Heck, she could have written me an actual letter. What I didn't want was the 10-page long text at 3 a.m. and me constantly staring at my phone, waiting for it to vibrate. I was angry, but I felt and still feel like I was justified, and I wasn't going to be the first person to break the stalemate. I figured if she actually cared, she'd find a way. I never got any texts from her friends until after the graduation, which makes me think she was still expecting me to show up, especially the one that said she couldn't believe I didn't go to the ceremony. But yes, I should have handled all of this better. I let pride and anger possibly ruin a good thing. I don't know. I'm still dealing with this. I go back and forth between thinking I dodged a bullet and thinking I shot myself in the foot. I'm not a perfect person, but I know I'm not abusive. Nor for the comment. Apparently, she just wanted me to say I would choose her party over my cousin's wedding, and then she told me not to do that. Oh, hell no. I'll take things that never happened for $1,000. Alex, would a liar, pants on fire? She 100% was asking you to choose her over your family. She just doesn't want to own it because it exposes her as the narcissist she is. Even if you suspend disbelief, lobotomized yourself, and trust her, she comes off no better. Playing games is ridiculously childish and immature. Your mutual friends are not your friends. No one needs friends like that. Drop them like a bad habit. Not thee. A friend of hers communicated that she would have allowed him to go after capitulation. That was the you should feel guilty scenario. Reality at best would have been, I can't believe you went and abandoned me. Good on OP for slamming the door hard. Makes callbacks on either side. Really tough. Since when does he need your permission? Plus, he accepted the wedding invite first. She sounds like a real piece of work, and I think he really dodged a bullet.